We're over at the governor's mansion again, like we do every Saturday. Real nice day out today. They got their flags up at full staff. It's called the Executive Mansion. It's 1006 Summit. Probably not going to be here too long. It's a historic site. I bet you it's 100 years old.
Maybe even older.
I don't know. I don't know what the age of it is.
I think a lot of these mansions on Summit are historic places, aren't they?
Yep.
Several of them.
Yeah, usually to be historic you have to be 100 years. But I don't know for sure. They might have given a special permission for the governor's mansion. So Cammie's having gravity problems?
No, but how do you get it clean? How do you cook it?
Well,
That's new. Why does it do that now?
I don't know.
I never did.
Something's new, huh? Maybe it's because of this.
Yeah, why does it do that? I don't know what I did.
I guess I've never seen the screen look like this before.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, you should probably flip it or just go turn it off.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen it do that.
Me neither. Oh, okay, I got it back. That's weird.
Yeah. So we're at the governor's mansion. It's called the Executive Mansion. It's the people's house. This is the state of Minnesota's executive mansion. And it's on the National Historic Places, so usually my understanding of that is it has to be 100 years old, but I don't know that for a fact. But I suspect as much. Yeah. Yeah. Somebody might be able to search what the age of the building is here.
I plan on leaving at 3 o'clock today because my motorcycle's all full of mud. I gotta wash it.
Well, what good is a motorcycle that gets dirty?
You know he had a
A
motorcycle.
little,
He's got several.
but it's not
Really?
gonna hurt it.
I'm surprised he's never shown up on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, how come you never show up on your motorcycle, Bruce?
Oh yeah.
Well, it's mostly made for off-road, but it is street legal. It's not something you want to take on the highway or the freeway.
Oh, it's like a dirt bike kind of.
Yeah.
Well, you could get here with back roads.
I could. That's true. You want me to do that sometime?
You could. Yeah. Show up with
Now
them.
it's going to be too cold.
I think it looked like a Harley, man.
Oh, it's too cold. Come on. Come on. Look at the weather today. It's too cold. It's too cold.
Of course, I'd ride my bicycle in this. Today it's nice. Yeah, today I know.
Today's nice. Yeah, it's not cold out today.
But yeah, if you don't wash your bike in the mud, it's like things could start rusting and things could start staining your bike and it look bad.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cool as well and all the cooling things are covered in mud. I went riding with 3 other guys at St. State Park last Friday.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Did I tell you about that?
You went riding with your bike? Motorcycle?
Met 3 people there.
Oh, that's good.
So 4 of us went.
Oh.
And these guys, they went to Colorado riding
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
They invited me to Colorado. But I said, I'm not that great at climbing hills. I don't
Do the
It's
mountains and
unlikely
stuff.
I'd go.
So where are we at right now, Bruce?
We are at the governor's mansion.
Is it called the Governor's Mansion or is it called something else?
Well, the executive mansion, perhaps?
It could be called that. A lot of people call this the People's House.
Ah, there you go.
Now, we don't want to say that this is Waltz's place, but
The house that people built.
that's
The
the
government that people built.
yeah,
The authorities that people built.
yeah,
Schools that people built.
yeah.
That's true.
I don't understand. People apparently didn't like that, so I don't know. But
So I got my car, brought my car in Wednesday, got a new windshield. I had to fix all the rust in the frame
yeah,
because it's all old and rusted out. And
where'd you get that done?
I went to a Christian conservative patriot. Are you filming?
Yeah. Is that a secret?
Well, as long as you're filming.
And say where you went.
Yeah, this Christian conservative patriot
Yeah. So you get close enough so you can see it.
replaces windshields. So I went all the way down to Apple Valley. Windshield replacer.
Yeah.
It's quality work, and I'm not giving my money to the swamp, right?
That's good.
The small business. You can keep it.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah, it's right up at Galaxy Avenue there.
oh, you know where that is?
Yeah, because I know Apple Valley because I used to deliver pizza there and I delivered doors, so I know all the block numbers. Galaxy 7000 block, so it's in a corner of 145th and Galaxy. So it's in between, halfway in between 140th Street and County Road 42.
Going down to Apple Valley, it's like a different city down there.
That's the governor's cat.
Must be. I see the
Yeah,
old
I forgot what the cat's name is. It's got like a Autumn or something like that. Maybe that's the daughter. I don't know.
What?
I got the names of the cats and the kids and the wife and stuff written down, but I don't remember the name of the cat.
Who's it stopping now?
I'm surprised they let the cat out because the cat could easily get, I don't know.
Good for you, Nugget and Nancy. Cats like the outside too.
Well, the thing is, the cat could easily get out,
My windshield.
right? Like right here.
They come back inside.
Who
They
d-
need outside too.
The cat?
Yes, the cat's like
Well, my cat used to love to go outside.
My cat does.
Yeah, but my neighborhood's got eagles, so cats outside can get attacked pretty easy.
The whole frame where the windshield sits.
Okay.
And so instead of being a 2-hour windshield replacement, he had my car 3 days because he had to sand off all the rust and prime it, dry it, prime
Yeah.
it, dry it, and then another product, and then the urethane, and then the windshield. So it took almost 4 hours later.
Was that included
Get all that
with your
rust
insurance?
out.
Because my glass replacement's covered, but I don't know if they would cover repairing rust around glass,
No, my insurance covered the entire windshield, 0 deductible,
including the rust work.
but not the rust. No, he
No.
said that rust replacement retail, that's $250 a work.
Yeah,
And that's probably on the low side compared to a body shop. But
yeah.
I said do it, because I don't want water leaking in and getting on my headliner and getting on the seats and the floor of the car and on the dash and just, spoiling it, getting mold and stuff. I don't want any water leaking in, so I said, do the whole works. And so I paid him cash.
Oh,
And, but the windshield part, I had 0 deductible. So I just had to pay the cash for the rust removal, but I felt it was worth it. I'm hoping the car is good, another 5 years, 50,000 miles. And, it's been a well taken care of car. It doesn't have much rust because it's been in Maine and California before Minnesota. And when it came to Minnesota, I rust-proofed it at Maplewood Toyota since it was such good shape. But because they improperly installed this windshield previously, that it's leaking water and causing everything to rust around the frame and inside the frame. And so he had to fix all that. Hopefully, he thinks we caught it in time. You know, but I think these days, if you got a reliable car, that it's probably worth fixing rather than buying a new. EVs are going to be really expensive for a while. And it's going to be a while before they're reliable because it's a new technology.
Yeah.
And then gas stations will slowly start disappearing, right?
Yeah.
But,
Well, pretty soon they're not going to let you even buy gas.
well, they'd like to do that. It's like they'd like to eliminate coal, natural gas, and oil, but the greenies aren't aware that, you know what, you can have cloud cover for weeks, and you're not going to have any solar power coming, and you can have wind die down for weeks, and you're not going to have any wind power coming to heat your homes, to light your homes, to use your stove, to use your dryer.
But
You're gonna
can't
be
you
stuck.
can't you just go buy all that stuff at Walmart?
What's that? Generators?
If you need stuff, you just buy it from the Walmart.
You can't buy electricity from Walmart. Or
Well, but
can't buy
you know
heat
the
for your furnace.
problem with these wing nuts is they've never actually seen where these systems fail.
Oh,
They
all
have-
you got to
they-
do is go to Europe right now.
They
to
have
see that.
these guys haven't. It hasn't gotten bad enough yet that the electrical grids and stuff fail. Like for example, when
They did in Texas though.
well, they had a failure of the pipelines for gasoline on the East Coast.
And that.
Right? That was an absolute disaster, and basically people were running out of fuel almost like 2-3 days later. There was no gasoline. People couldn't go anywhere because they couldn't get gas because this pipeline that piped much of the refined gasoline to this whole area of the United States shut down because of whatever. And I don't know if it was one of those hacks or what, but people don't realize that these pipelines pipe. You know, basically, if you don't have a pipeline piping this stuff, you have huge numbers of trucks. You know, hauling it. It's much more expensive. The pipeline just pipes. It might be a 12-inch line or whatever size line. It just pumps constantly, and it gets there quickly. It delivers the product to safely. And these pipelines don't want to leak fluid. They don't, because it's
Oh, no.
expensive. That stuff's
They don't want nothing
expensive.
to do with it.
You know.
They want to make them as safe as possible.
Well, they don't want to have all the mitigation and the other thing is when a pipeline leaks fluid, liquid, oil, whatever, it's traced back to the pipeline. So now, as far as liability goes, you know who's responsible for it because literally the pipeline has a hole in it and there's a bunch of leaked fluid all over the place. So then the pipeline people are required to clean it up and do all the remediation of the soils and stuff.
And pay all the fines.
All that stuff. Whereas if you have tanker trucks and they're out there leaking oil down the road, or they have a fuel leak or whatever, and they're pouring gasoline that's leaking all over the place, nobody knows which one did it. There's nobody unless there's an accident, like you overturn one and there's fuel everywhere and stuff. Then they can do something about that one, but
Now that's why the pipeline companies, they want to replace old aging pipeline
with new ones.
with new ones that won't leak for a long time, and they're willing to pay millions and hire thousands of American workers to improve these pipelines so they won't leak. And then you got protesters against it. Well, what do you want? Trains and trucks going up and down the roads, hundreds of them daily.
Or do you want a
instead of
pipeline?
And they have more accidents and spills than a pipeline.
You know that
better
pipeline's
think
operating
twice.
now. I believe the line 3 that they were here complaining about is operating and turned on.
Where
the
does it
Lord.
go from? Where does
I'm
that,
so
what area
thankful.
does that cover?
Oh, it goes through Minnesota to, is it Wisconsin?
Okay.
Yeah, it comes through. It goes to the
Does it
refineries.
come from up in Alaska or
I
something?
think it comes from. I think it comes from Canada.
Canada.
Canada?
Yeah.
I don't have the route memorized. All I know is it goes from the upper northwest corner of Minnesota, and it runs through.
Not sure.
It runs through it runs up into the northeast a little bit.
Minnesota was the only state holding up the pipeline, and the other states had their pipeline in.
Completed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the issue was there was many tribes, native peoples groups that had negotiated with the pipeline people for the rights to go through their area, and they ended up having a previous route, and because of these negotiations, they ended up rerouting a part of the pipeline
Oh, they did.
along a different route, which of course changes the money going to the people granting rights. And there was one group in particular that was trying to hold out for more money, and but other groups voted in favor of it and authorized it. So the pipeline got authorized by not 100%, by a sufficient percentage, which is the idea of democracy, right?
You mean of Indian tribes, you mean?
Native, yeah. They authorized it, but not all of them. But that wasn't required. You don't have to get all of them to authorize it. But there's a group of them that didn't authorize it. They were holding out for more money, I think, and they didn't authorize it. And then they're like, well, that was a violation of treaty rights or whatever because I did not. It'd be like the four of us having a vote, and the three of you guys vote in favor of something, and I refuse to because I want you guys to give me half the money. And it's not fair that you guys are each of you taking a quarter of it. I only get a quarter of it, so I'm going to vote against it unless you give me half of it, right? That's kind of what was going on. People, that's the idea of eminent domain. They weren't doing eminent domain here, I don't think, but eminent domain is the idea is you run a street through a neighborhood, and let's say Bruce owns one of those plots along the route, and Bruce is, yeah, I see you bought all the land except for mine. I want $1 million for mine. And the fair market value of his property isn't $1 million. And Bruce is refusing to sell it except for a crazy amount. And they'll use eminent domain to get it. And they'll say, Bruce will wind up probably getting 50% more money for the land than it would be for fair market value. But he's not going to get, huge amounts extra.
Yeah, but doesn't the government just take it from people anyway? Like, I mean,
They can only use eminent domain for a public need.
Yeah.
Now we had a lot of problem with the Democrats in Brooklyn Center feeling that they could use eminent domain for whatever they wanted.
take away from the small business guy, give it to the corporation.
Yep, they used eminent domain to take out the Hmong district in Brooklyn Center, and that wasn't even part of the opportunity site. They had an opportunity site that
They did it in Burnsville too.
they went around
Minneapolis, too, North Minneapolis.
they went around all these places and said they were using eminent domain to take your property. They notified all these tenants, the people who were renting this stuff, that we're going to take this and we're going to use it for redevelopment or whatever. Well, then what happens is all these tenants are like, well, that pretty much voids our leases, and also we're not going to spend any money on advertising for this location anymore because we're going to have to move. So they just figure on moving. And then what happens is it's not legal. They fight it in court, but the problem is all the tenants moved out. So half the tenants moved out, and a lot of people believe that the government has these rights and they just don't resist it. Just like, they say that you're mandated to wear a mask, people will just believe it.
And you're not to, because it's not a lot.
But people,
Legislative
most people, if the government went around town and said you have to wear red shirts from now on, any shirts color other than red, you're going to get it's illegal. I guarantee it that there'd be a big sale on red shirts. Everybody and their brother would be buying red shirts because the government told them you have to wear red shirts, and
Yeah, the red shirt manufacturers like laws like that too.
Yeah, And
That's how lobbying works.
yeah, and so if you're the only
And then
company,
Congress
you know,
likes to
really
buy
the
stock in that
Like mandatory
because they know
insurance.
they're going to
different things
pass
like
and
that.
the companies that make the red ink, they like that. You know, the companies that make blue ink don't like that very much. What?
We're going to interview you guys.
Well, I don't
You
know.
and Cammy, we're going to interview you too.
So the companies that like red ink really like the idea of mandating everybody use red ink, right? So
Yep, and the Congress, they know what laws they're going to pass, so they have their financial advisors are buying stock
ahead of time.
ahead of time, and before it shoots up, skyrockets. That's how many of them make their millions. It's really insider
Thieves.
trader,
They're thieves.
and Republicans and Democrats both do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta stop.
But yeah,
Swamp.
because they don't have to know what their financial advisor is doing, but their financial advisor knows the laws that they plan on passing, right?
Ahead of time.
Yeah, ahead of time.
So like you were talking about before, these politicians,
Back.
these politicians
There,
these
stop.
politicians who come in to office and they maybe they have a net worth of $100,000, right? $100,000 net. And
Probably less than what I have. I have more than that.
now they come out of office and they're worth multi-million. They
Yeah,
got four
100
houses.
on $174,000 salary.
Yeah. And they were only in there for 2 years. 4 years.
And how did they do it? You
Well,
tell
it's
me,
because
how
of-
did they do
Because
it?
of really good investing.
Or pillow talk.
They got really good investment.
Pillow talk.
Pillow talk, yeah.
Pillows,
That's what they do.
Mike Lindell pillows.
By the way, go invest in that
Parasites.
stock because you know it's
Bloodsuckers.
They're all about doing that. You know, these guys, there's no way your $174,000 in 2 years is going to be worth $2 million.
And then, do you want to talk about Hillary Clinton's bet on cattle futures?
That was amazing that
She
you
made
took
$1 million?
$1,000 and went to like $100,000
Yeah.
because she's really smart. Right? Right? Yeah, she's really smart. She took $100,000, I think, and made it into $100,000, just like that. And I believe Obama got a house practically for free. And the market value was like millions of dollars, and he bought it for like 400,000 or something like that.
I see.
Because he's a smart guy.
He's smart. He knows a good deal when he sees
Yeah,
one.
he knows a good
Yes,
deal when he
sir.
sees one, and he buys it. You know, he just
So, what did you think of Obama's investment, government investment in solar
somebody coming out,
companies
it's
at Solandra? Did you hear about
it's
that
amazing these investments.
Obama invested in Solandra,
Yeah,
a solar company,
yeah.
tens of millions of dollars of whose money? Our money. And it goes bankrupt, and he doesn't lose a dime, right?
Yeah,
And he can just invest in these companies, and his advisor can be investing, you know, in the companies that he's propping up with all these millions. They can invest and get out before it crashes, right?
that happens a lot with companies. The people who make the decision might drive the value of the stock down to zero, but they have a deal where they negotiate some kind of an offer with somebody else so that their stock gets purchased at full price. And then all the other stockholders don't get purchased, the value of their stock is practically zero. So basically this one person who has a big enough stock holding negotiates a deal. I worked for a company that happened to, where the one stockholder held a considerable amount, like 20-30%, and he negotiated a deal so that he got paid 100%, and all these other people who worked there got paid essentially nothing. You know, and then the company went under and became part of another company.
A regular investor who checks his stocks once a week, he looks at his stocks 1 week and, you know, the company's looking okay, and then a week later it's worth almost nothing.
Yeah.
And he goes, "What happened?" Because he doesn't know what's going on behind the scenes.
No. But these people who are insiders in the government, have lobbyists knocking on their door, telling them all kinds of stuff, and they have insider information all the time, and it's really not good. And they're gonna feed this information to their cronies, especially the ones in charge of their money and their investments and so forth, and they're going to benefit from this stuff.
How much do you think AOC and left-wing progressives? How much do you think their financial advisors are investing in electrical vehicles and solar energy and so forth along those lines?
Well, I think that they pretty much know what's coming up the pipe, and they know what's going to pass and what's not going to pass, and how that's going to impact stock values of things. And they know this stuff well ahead of the regular public does, and they're feeding this stuff back to their people, and they're getting benefit from it.
And so how much are they influenced in making policies by their true belief? They believe in global warming crisis. How much is influenced by how much money they can get, and how much is just their ego wants to have power over the people? What are their motivations, do you think?
I personally, in my opinion, I think it's all money. It's all the swamp. I don't think that they're really doing a lot of this stuff for their actual personal beliefs and stuff. Because if it was all about their actual beliefs, it would be fairly clear as to what they're going to do, and there wouldn't be lobbied, and there wouldn't really be any question as to how they're going to vote. And the only people that really get lobbied and get all these payoffs and stuff are the ones who are manipulatable. And so I think there's a considerable amount. But I guess I don't know for sure. I don't want to
I don't know. I mean, how much, like we know, like governors and U.S. congressmen get rich through this scam. But how about like on a the local level, like say the state house or something, like the mayors, and city council? Do they benefit on that kind of level, or they do the same kind of thing, just on a smaller scale, or is that?
I think I wouldn't be surprised a lot of times even the local levels are doing that. They don't have the level of it. It's not as possible for them to manipulate markets as dramatically. But historically speaking, we've always seen corruption in local governments too.
I think maybe these people commit to corruption at the local level because they have ambitions, higher office. And the more connections they make, the more money. That's kind of the deal. They work it up. But instead of honest people, right, start your way at the bottom, work your way up, they do it the dishonest way. They do it by being corrupt.
Yeah.
Maybe the higher up they go, the more connected they get. That's what I think.
And so, Robert, what did you think of this last election? How things went, like in Virginia?
Well, I was pretty happy
school
about
boards and so forth.
I think, the school boards in Virginia were awesome. There's quite a few of them that got flipped. And of course, the Virginia governor was awesome. And of course, people like AOC are saying that the reason that happened was because of the moderate Democrats. Right? They're blaming the moderate Democrats for that. It was 100% these ultra leftists and all the evil stuff that was going on in these school boards and stuff. That was why the Democrats lost those elections.
But supposedly that younger guy, establishment rhino, that's what I've been hearing.
Well, he might be, but he's a whole lot better than the other guy.
Yeah.
He might be an establishment.
He's gotten rich from the same kind of scams. That's what I've been reading.
So what about the people, to prevent him from becoming a rhino, what can the people do to keep his feet to the fire?
Maybe like everybody that runs for office should scrutinize how much money they're worth and where it comes from and how they made it. Like if Scott Johnson's running for governor, how much money is he worth, and how'd you make your money? If all of a sudden he's worth $50 million, you're a doctor, you ain't gonna make that kind of money. I would scrutinize where they get their money from, and who they hang out with, the company they keep. I think people don't do their homework on it enough. They just listen to what these politicians say. It's like they don't do their homework on it, their research, they don't check their track record enough.
Yeah.
You know, and then when he gets in office, and then the minute they get elected, they go back on their word. You know.
And so, Scott and
Screw
Robert,
us again.
It's okay
what?
to say my name. It's my feed.
Okay.
It's not, you know, if people don't
know.
know
I thought
who
this
I
is
am on my own
CBS.
feed. It's like,
I thought this is CBS News here. I
Okay.
didn't know exactly.
so you guys,
So what-
you guys are random people, and what you guys are doing is we're just random people on the street, and there's no collusion.
And so, what do you two think about the change happening in America? Like, do you think are you disappointed at the speed it's happening? So in Virginia, the governor won, a Democratic governor won by 10% in Virginia. Now 1 year later, a Republican running for office won by 2%. So about a 12% shift from Democrat to Republican in 1 year. What do you think about the progress of this? Do you think it's going fast enough? Are you frustrated by the change, or is it looking good, you think?
I think it's looking good. Switching 12% is good. So, but personally, I'd like to see it switch even more than 12%. I'd like to see it go 20, 30%, because I think, you know, when you come right down to it, Democrats are generally waking up. You know, the walkaway movement's still moving strong. People are seeing that this is wrong. Even the you know, these radicals on the other side are out there putting up statements saying that they don't want to get rid of the cops, right? They're not. They go out there and they say defund the police and they say all this kind of stuff when they're doing their marches and stuff. But when it actually gets to the point where, you know, there might be a possibility of it happening, their big shot leaders come out and say that they're against it, because even them, they realize that some of this extremism isn't right. You know, back in May 2020, they were out there, these ones that we see marching against us in places like this, specifically the same people. We see them whipping up the rioters in Minneapolis and St. Paul to burn down all these neighborhoods predominantly owned by minorities, right? And they're out there, there's videos of these people, the same ones that did this, out there advocating for this, we're going to protect this business, and we're not going to protect that business. We're in control of all this stuff, and we're deciding this stuff. And they're out there whipping up the crowd, trying to get them to get their blowhorns and stuff, whipping up the crowd, telling them to just keep doing this stuff because the cops are going to come in and shut us down at some point. And then the cops never come. The cops never come. And then they just keep going. And then you're going out there in Minneapolis and St. Paul at night, and their flames are going up into the air 40 feet.
They're holding upside down flags.
Yep. And then the fire department shows up, and they want to put out the fire, you know. And then these people are blocking the fire department from putting out the fire, and these whole areas are just being burned out. You know, and the vast majority of these things that were burned out were minority owned or minority serving, right? They didn't go burning down neighborhoods in Edina, and they didn't go burning down North Oaks and stuff like that. They didn't go burn the governor's mansion down. They go burn down the stuff that's in the neighborhoods where, like the Targets and stuff, that they need to have food for their families and stuff. And they burned down, there was a low-income housing unit that was being built out there. They burned that down. And then these ultra-Marxists that are leading some of these groups were saying, well, that was actually for upper-income people. It was not. It was for low-income housing. They burned down stuff like that.
So what does that tell you about their claim, the BLM claims to be advocating for blacks and for the poor? What does that tell you about their real mission and objectives?
they're not advocating for minorities. They're extremely anti-brown people. These Antifa groups, they don't want to call themselves Antifa. We always call them Antifa. They call themselves community groups, right? But we always call them Antifa groups because that's kind of what we see them as. There's a whole bunch of these groups. They show up. Basically, they want to categorize everybody into based on their skin color mostly, but also on their gender preferences and their sexual preferences, and also their religion to some extent. But basically, they want to put everybody into a box. And so basically, they'll want to know, well, how many friends do you have that are black? And it's like, well, I don't keep this thing where I've got this guy as my black friend and this guy is. I don't do that. People who aren't racist don't do stuff like that. The racists are the ones who do stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, we had one of our presidents, you know, at the Mondale funeral, getting up there saying that he's not racist, right? He's not racist because he had a manservant named George, black guy, and he's not a racist because you know, he knows his name. Yeah, his name's George, right? Yeah, his name's George. So that means I'm not racist. And we also treat this guy, George, like everybody else. So I'm not racist. And it's like, that's like the definition of being racist. You know, believing that you treat your guy like a regular person is some of the most racist stuff comes out of that. We're out here in front of the governor's mansion, and we have minority people who are here, which we don't run around saying that this person's a minority, this person, whatever. But the other team, huge triggers on them because they're a member of one of these groups that they want to control, and they feel like that you're basically Uncle Tom or you're whatever. All kinds of racist slurs against these people for daring to get out of underneath the thumb of the overseers and under the drivers, that they want to be the classic racists like back in 1860, you know, prior to the Civil War. They treat all of the people in the same terms as the classic racists, and they're doing that right now. And they also want to go into your schools and stuff and advocate for. They don't want to call it critical race theory. They want to call it other stuff. But they're advocating for things that are the same thing as critical race theory. Where basically they're saying that, well, this kid here is white, so this kid's evil, and this kid over here is Hispanic, let's say, so this kid's considered brown, so this kid's an oppressed one, and then this kid can't do anything and can't achieve. Whereas this one has privilege, and that's absolutely against the whole idea that Martin Luther King came out with, not judging people based on what their bodies like.
Melanin.
Yeah, you can't judge people based on what they look like, what their national origin is, or what their character, what their personal
Appearance.
beliefs are and stuff, their appearance. You should be judging them based on what they do and what their actions are and what's inside their heart.
And so, did you also hear about that, with this National School Board asked the Biden administration to send out the National Guard and the Homeland Security and FBI against parents who vehemently disagree with school boards. And a few days before the election, the National School Board apologized for doing that, but in the meantime, several liberal talk show hosts came out in media and they exposed what the National School Board was asking and what the Attorney General and Biden were planning. And the liberals were angry at these plans and saying this is fascism, communism, dictatorial and stuff. So now even the moderate Democrats seem to be waking up to the extremism that's currently happening in this nation.
Well, the freedom of speech is the freedom to speak, right? It's not. It doesn't limit who gets to listen to it. it also isn't freedom of speech only stuff that's approved, right? And the idea of book burning is something that's kind of come up here historically now. We used to have problems where a certain speech wasn't allowed. They want to burn the books and stuff. Nowadays, basically, there's kind of like two kinds of speech. There's the speech that's approved by the woke people, and there's the speech that's not approved. Anybody who is basically off the approved area, is considered a racist and an extremist and a Nazi and fascist and all this kind of stuff. And they want to call the cops on them. They want to get them arrested. They want to dox them. They want to try to get them fired. They want to go after their businesses. They want to go after their families and stuff. It's just absolutely wrong. The idea of freedom of speech and freedom of press and freedom of assembly and the freedom of petition are all freedoms that people should be free to do that stuff, even if it offends you. The idea that freedom is only free if it meets my approval is not freedom at all.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. If you just, it's like if you see a guy preaching out on the street and offend you, just move on. Don't listen to him. Then tune him out. Or if you don't like what you see on the TV set or whatever, then turn the dial. Or shut it off.
Our country was based on the idea of a lot of these oppressed religions, like Pilgrims and Quakers and all these different groups that were being oppressed back in their home countries. They came here, and they weren't necessarily popular, even here, right? But they were free to exercise, or even the Amish and so forth, exercise their religions without being oppressed just because of their beliefs here, And the idea that you hate somebody or they can't speak because they're Catholic or because they're Lutheran or because they're Baptist or because they're Amish or they're Jehovah's Witness or they're Jewish or they're Muslim or they're Hindu or whatever they are, or maybe they're atheist or they're agnostic. Everybody has the right to speak. And we have people show up here who claim to be Satanists. They show up with the cross thing with the pentagram, right? And those people have the right to speak. I do not have the right not to be offended. They have their beliefs. I have my beliefs. Their beliefs are protected. My beliefs are protected. That person can't come out here and say, because Scotty is a Christian, he can't speak, but they can because they're Satanists. That's not how it works. Everybody has the right to speak. Now you can't do things like going into a movie theater and scream fire and stuff. You can't threaten people.
Slander people.
Well, if you slander and defame and libel people, you're potentially going to have civil cases and stuff against you. You can't cause, you have the right to protest, but you don't have the right to burn down whole sections of the city. You have the right to protest, but you do not have the right to hold space and block roads and stuff, especially stuff like Interstate I-94. And this idea of these people going out there and holding space on the interstate and blocking the road for, as this freedom of speech it's not right, because I don't have the right to stop people that are driving down a road, blocking traffic and preventing regular people from being able to walk on the sidewalk.
And preventing police and ambulance from getting through.
Yeah, people die
in
because
emergencies.
Of that. Blocking ambulances and so forth, so the ambulances couldn't get to the people. They claim people died. They were in ambulances and got blocked. They needed to go to the hospital, and they weren't able to make it to the hospital.
The public right of way is for who?
It's for everybody, even people I don't like. Right? I don't have to. I'm sure that people here that don't like me, they're going up and down this road. This is a free to pass road. I don't have any right to block these people from driving down this road. And if these people want to roll down their window and scream at us or whatever, they have the right to do that. You know, I don't have the right to, you know.
What do you think about the hate speech laws of the progressives? Now, I think they've tried to pass that many times. I don't know if it's gone completely through yet.
Well, the big problem with that is they want to basically define hate speech as anything that offends them. That's
like the truth. If especially you speak the truth about things.
like, for example, Let's Go Brandon. They're wanting to brand that as hate speech. You know.
Or if you say that homosexuality is a sin against God, that's hate speech. But the Bible clearly states
Clearly,
it's the truth. There's nothing hateful
it's the
about
truth. Yeah, we're not designed by our Creator. What would you say about how God designed us concerning sexuality and gender?
Well, it's kind of like the whole universe is based on the laws of opposites. I mean, you can't get electricity by putting two like ends of a battery together, right? I mean, you can. It's like you need two opposites, you know, to create electricity. That's the same thing with male and female. Male and female didn't create them. You know? It's impossible. I mean, it's even with plant life, you have male and female.
How many genders are there in the animal kingdom? How about the human kingdom? Then why are they teaching kids there's more than two? And why are they teaching that it's fluid? You're fluid. They can choose 1 week to be one sex, another week to be another, and they can invade girls' privacy in bathrooms and their sports teams. Why are they doing that? And what's their basis of truth?
No, it just sounds like to me, I don't know, like we're the devil, basically.
I think it's them at war with one of their other groups. They want to put people into boxes, right? So you're black, or you're white, you're male, you're female. Females are one of those groups that are expected to be obedient to that, to this woke culture. And for some reason or another, they're absolutely at war with women on many levels. You know, privacy, right? Privacy in the bathroom. Women don't have any rights to privacy in the bathroom. Women don't have rights to having their own sports teams. So if I want to identify as a female, heck, I want to identify as a 100-pound weight class, right? Because I can identify as whatever I want. And now I want to be a wrestler and wrestle girls the size of Cammy here.
And then beat them up.
Yeah,
Yeah, a real man.
I'm a real man. That's
yeah, like
that's
these MMA
perfect.
fights, right? A guy beat a woman.
Yeah.
He should be arrested for that.
Severely wounded some woman because as a male against a female, she got like fractured skull. And,
Yeah.
You know, and they think it's okay. Men are inherently stronger,
Yeah.
right? They're bigger generally speaking too. You
Yeah.
know?
More
And-
muscle man.
Even just an average sized guy. Not even just the average male, you know.
Yep. So and women didn't used to have sports at all. You know, for years and years, and they fought for having sports, and then they started having their sports taken away from them.
Yeah, I remember I saw this video like it was like a 100-yard dash or something in a sprint race. It was a man pretending to be a woman, and of course he won it. Like left the rest of them in the dust,
Yep.
right? And he's like, "Oh, and I won," and won. The rest of them are just standing up. They all walked away from, like, turned their back on him. Like, it's ridiculous.
What do you think about a sports team where a woman tried out for a high school sports team, and a girl and a boy beat her out, and so now she can't be on the team because a boy beat her
I
out?
don't know. I just personally, I think boys' teams should be boys' teams. I don't know why try up for, you know. I just don't.
Well, we always, when I was in high school, we always had women's teams and men's teams,
Yeah,
and the girls could try out for the men's if they wanted to. And we had a female goalie for the hockey team, you know, and this is in Minnesota, so I mean, it's a good school. So she was a good goalie, right? And sometimes you'll have a female kicker for the football team, or you know, Well, there's a lot. There's things that girls they can compete, you know, on a men's team and get a position, and it's generally been allowed, but men shouldn't be on the women's team because you know they're just bigger. You know, it's just
Would you
not fair.
consider that equity, that bigger men can be on women's sports teams?
It's not fair. It's not fair for men to be competing with women on physical stuff like that in sports. Because otherwise, women don't really have an equal chance. And really, they're put in a hazard. You know, men fighting other women. You know, especially boxing. You know, I can't imagine boxing and fighting type sports.
Wrestling,
like wrestling, jujitsu,
football,
football. You know, it was,
basketball.
Golf.
well, golf. I could see.
No, there's women, but I'm saying, but like saying professional, because there's been like Annika Sorenstam, Michelle Wee, when they played in a PGA men events and they never even made the cut because the women's generally they might play like their course might be say 6,500 yards long. The men play 7,500. It's just they're long hitters. The courses are long, so they're probably not gonna.
Well, I can tell you for a fact that pretty much all of those women on the
They're good golf.
They would
Absolutely.
beat.
Oh, they beat me definitely.
They beat me,
Yeah.
right? They would beat me, but
Yeah.
But as far as the premier
Yeah, at
players,
that level, yeah.
that's another story.
Yeah, you're not going to go head to head with
And
the big boys out there.
in motocross and supercross, which I follow, girls are allowed to compete, but we've never had one so far that's been able to compete at the men's level, just because of their lung function, their strength, endurance. But they're allowed to compete. You know,
Same
it's
with
just,
racing, too. Like racing. Same
well,
And so it's
we've
good-
seen some racers. There's Danica.
I don't think she ever won a race.
So it's good we have girls motocross so that they have an opportunity to be competitive, you know, against the more equal field.
Yeah,
Of females.
I think it's just it simplifies it. Have girls sports, have boys sports.
Girls' bathrooms and boys' bathrooms, and if you're gonna allow men to go in the women's bathrooms, you know, guys generally don't care if women go in, because you basically almost never hear about a woman assaulting a man, right? And guys, you know, they don't care if women come in the bathroom,
I bet she's a hottie. Yeah, she can come take a peek anytime.
right? The guys don't care, but it's the women. You know, women's privacy needs to be protected. They can't have these guys coming into their bathroom, and they have privacy now. If you're arguing that there should be, you know, more bathroom types, then realistically they should be requiring all the bathrooms to be individual. A lot of individual type bathrooms, and that's it. Basically one-seaters.
Now, America is a place that we have laws for the welfare of the people, and so little girls in the public school bathrooms, how are they going to get justice if boys go in there and they start taking pictures of them half-dressed and taking pictures of them in various places in the bathroom or dressing room, filming them and using that to shame or to gain an advantage over the girls, or maybe they're even assaulted in the bathrooms. You know, at what age are girls old enough to be able to defend themselves and to be able to report this to the authorities and be able to deal with such, you know, offenses against them? Like, at what age should this be occurring? Or are girls even able to defend themselves from such things? Will they be scared to even tell if the boy threatens them? Are they even going to tell their mom and dad? Are they even going to tell the principal and their teacher if they're threatened, along with all these offenses?
Well, there's an expectation of privacy in the bathroom. One of the mothers tried to defend her son, I guess it is, against these claims, saying that the victim female was 15 years old, and being 15 years old is big enough to defend
A
yourself.
little golden retriever.
There's a really cute one.
Oh, a little lab. A little yellow lab.
But they argued that she should be old enough to defend herself because she's 15, and it's like she shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. You know, she shouldn't have some man, a male, come into the bathroom and rape her, and then it's like blaming the victim all the time. You know, the woman dressed too sleazy, so it's the woman's fault. You know, she shouldn't have been drinking. You know, so that's not right. You know, women shouldn't be put in these positions all the time, and that's what they're doing. They're basically pushing these ideas that women. I don't understand it at all, because for years and years and years it was all about the ERA and women's liberation and burning your bras and stuff like that, and now it's the war on women, and these leftists are just anti-woman huge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, there was a 5-year-old girl in Decatur, Georgia, and a boy came into her bathroom stall. She was in a bathroom stall, and a boy pinned her in the stall and sexually assaulted her. She's only 5 years old.
And this is where?
Decatur, Georgia.
Recently?
This is several years ago now. And so the mother, the girl was able to tell the mother about this, and she was able to find out all about it and the boy who did it and the whole story. And so the mother reports this to the school authorities, the teacher, the principal, and the school authorities, instead of defending and protecting this little girl and making sure it doesn't happen again, the school authorities report the mother to child protection services, and they blame the mother and the child for what this boy did, like you were saying. And so if this is occurring in schools where the schools are not only not defending the girls, they're not protecting them, but they're accusing them of being the problem, and their parents, how they're being raised, is the problem. How widespread is this going on in the United States and not being reported at all?
This stuff's going on everywhere, pretty much every one of your school districts. Like for example, in Stillwater here, they have incidents there. They right away are calling CPS on students that are fighting back against the masks and stuff in schools. They want to call the cops. They want to dox people. Like for example, in your school board, when you're speaking at the school board, they want you to give your full name and your address. Is that right?
They did.
Yeah, that's what they
Now
want to do. They
name.
want to dox people. They want to publish people's home addresses. They want to do crank calls on them. They want to show up at their houses sometimes.
Give them a fake address. That's what I do.
Give them a fake address.
Yeah.
I know they don't check it. You can lie if you want, but most people aren't going to lie about their address. Plus, if you put up a fake address, they're going to dox you.
Oh, okay, here's my address. You want to come to my house? I'll be waiting. Smith, Wesson, and me.
But that's what they're trying to coerce you into not speaking because they want your address to be known. There was a guy at one of your school board meetings where he was trying to menace you guys for being so angry and so offended that you guys dare come here and speak about these things. And how dare you speak about these things? And it's like, he's acting like he's going to come to your house and attack you or whatever. And to me, that's just absolutely wrong. And the school boards are complicit in this stuff by getting your information and putting it out there intentionally, and even saying what you're going to speak about, and then deciding whether or not you even get to speak on the subject, because you have to declare your subject prior to you speaking. So they're
legal obligation.
There's never been a legal obligation.
I have a right to speak, and I don't have to tell you anything.
You know, you shouldn't have to.
How about criminals who have been gone through the legal system and they've found guilty of crimes? Can you print their first and last name and their address since they've lost their protections, legal protections?
I personally don't like the idea of punishing people after their punishment's over. Now, if they're on probation, that might be part of their probation, right? If they're one of these people that's considered a habitual offender, I guess that's a hard one. I
A level 3
personally,
sex offender,
yeah,
he should never be out in the first place.
that's the thing. But to me, once you get found guilty of something, people should have the ability to be reformed and come back into society. The idea, if you did something bad, you know, and you got found guilty of it and you went sent to prison for a while, at some point you get put on probation. Then now you've got this terms of your probation for a certain period of time. You should have the rights to come back into society and not be forever ostracized. But certain types of people.
Merle Haggard wrote a song called "I'm a Branded Man," left out in the cold because he wasn't in prison. Yeah.
I don't believe in the idea of punishing people forever, unless they did something really heinous, where I would advocate that, you know, capital punishment's appropriate. But generally speaking, you know, people shouldn't be punished forever.
Yeah.
People should have a chance to be redeemed, come back around. And a lot of these people want to basically out everybody who ever got in trouble for anything, and put all this stuff out in the public and humiliate people because when they were 17 years old, they did something that was not appropriate, and they got in trouble for it, and they wound up in juvie for it, you know. And people should have the ability to come back from that and not be forever.
Well, it used to be that way in this country.
Yeah.
You get out of prison, okay, you serve your time, it's done.
It's done.
So when I wonder when that changed, when they started doing this stuff different. You know, I don't.
Yeah, because, you know, really, you know, a lot of these people who are doing this to people are the same ones who are also saying that nobody should go to jail, right? But then they also want to brand people who are criminals forever. So I don't see how they can even you know, logically argue these kinds of things, where they're, you know, basically going both ways on the same subject.
What do you think about a criminal who did a heinous crime?
Yeah.
You know, probably guilty of several murders and rapes and molestations, and was given the death penalty. But what if in jail, and so we'll say the death penalty was delayed for 1 year, so you had 1 year to repent, the Christian term. If that person repented and he was no longer the person he was, do you think he should still get the death penalty? Or do you think because he reformed, he repented, the sentence should be reduced?
Well, you might argue with me on that one. I would argue that basically Jesus said, "Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and give unto God that which is God." As far as I believe, people can get forgiven and repent of their beliefs and stuff. But when it comes right down to it, is if you're one of these people like Hitler, let's say, that's responsible for murdering large numbers of people, and you did so willingly, and you chose to do that stuff, and you got found guilty of that stuff, and you were sentenced to be hung, you deserve it, whether you find Jesus in the end or not. I think it's good that you find Jesus in the end, but the fact of the matter is you did all those horrible things.
Isn't whenever a judge sentences people to death, they always say, "May God have mercy on your soul."
Yeah, because if you know the idea that to me, God might be able to forgive somebody for all their trends, because basically God considers everybody to be a sinner, but you can't
There's still consequences. Is
There's
what you're saying.
consequences to it, and you basically did something.
You can't
that-
erase the consequences.
You can't erase them. And people, there has to be justice for what people do. And if you have this get out of jail free card, like for example, you're this guy, they were talking on the news just earlier today about this guy who was a sadistic torture killer, right? He got sentenced, he died recently, but basically did horrible stuff. He was capturing women and was torturing them to death and killing them. And then they had all these videos and stuff and everything. And well, that guy gets put in jail. He's put for a life sentence. Then he's put death penalty. And then he, he claims to find Jesus and says he's a saved guy now. And so now he went to church and he had the Father forgive him of his sins and stuff. And now he's all clean. He's not clean. To me, the person did all this stuff. There's consequences for that, because you can't let people get off on the consequences.
Or there's conversion is real, and that is between him and God.
Yep,
It's like jailhouse conversions, and you get a lot of that.
yeah. To me, that's a
I'm a
him and
changed
God.
man now. Judge, I found Jesus.
Yeah,
And
because
so-
otherwise everybody
Would do that.
everybody in prison is going to say that I'm a converted Christian now.
Yeah.
And
Get out of it.
because God forgives me of my sins, then you guys should forgive me too. And
Well, what would it take to be an authentic change of heart, authentic repentance and reform? How would we know if it's authentic or if it's fake?
Well, the criminal on the cross next to Jesus, authentic, man, because he said, "Hey, this man's done no wrong, but we're getting what we deserve here."
there was
Even
two
said-
criminals on the cross.
Yeah, one of them
repented, one of them didn't.
He said to the other one, "We're getting what we deserve."
Yeah.
Remember me, Jesus, when you come to your kingdom. Jesus said, "Truly, I say unto you, today you shall be with me in paradise."
Hallelujah.
Really,
So he was
really,
really saved, yeah.
from a biblical standpoint, that's exactly the deal. Jesus didn't try to get himself off the cross either. He didn't try to get either one of these guys that were on either side of him off the cross.
Yeah.
And just like Scotty said, the one that was saved said, by being put to death, he's getting what he deserved.
Get what we deserve.
Here's the problem I would have. Okay, if I'm the executioner,
Yeah.
and if I knew a horrible criminal got the death penalty, he deserved it, right?
Yeah.
And I knew he deserved it, but I saw that he truly repented and truly reformed. At that point, as a Christian, he's like my brother or sister in Christ. And I don't know that I could put him to death if I was executioner.
But Jesus,
You know what I
Jesus
mean?
You might be able to have somebody else do it then.
But Jesus put
I don't
to
know
death.
that I,
Jesus
Oh,
allowed
because
yeah.
I'd be
person-
putting, to me it'd be like putting Scotty to death. You know, he's my brother in Christ. You know what I mean?
Just call
Yeah,
it
but-
sick to work.
But if Scotty owes me $1,000, Scotty owes me $1,000.
So
That's-
I understand the
there's
justice
justice.
and the consequences. Now, bringing it to a spiritual level, Scotty, where are we at as far as what do we deserve? What does all human beings deserve from God?
Death.
And so we're all under the death penalty.
But Jesus died in our place now.
And so how come God didn't just kill us all because we're all worthy of death? We've all done evil in his sight. Why
Because
didn't he just
because
kill
he's
us all?
merciful. Because he says in his word, he says that I prefer mercy over judgment. I don't remember exactly. It's in the Old Testament. He goes, I prefer mercy rather than sacrifice. In fact, the highest thing in the tabernacle was the mercy seat, right? It was above everything else.
Interesting.
So he prefers like mercy over judgment. Judgment's like his last resort, but he prefers mercy first, that we repent, because he wants everybody to come to repentance, and he's not willing that anyone should perish. He wants everybody to be saved.
Hallelujah. So when I was talking, I was out in the park doing evangelism on Thursday, and I talked to a Muslim family, father and mother, and they had 2 girls and a boy, I think, so family of 5. And so, you know, I was very direct when I approached them, not knowing what their faith was. Not that it mattered, but I said, did you know that Jesus is the only way to heaven? I asked them that question, and they said, well, we're Muslims. And so I asked them, how do you go to heaven? How do you get to heaven? And he said, by doing good, being a good person, by respecting others like we respect you, even though you're different faith. And I said, well, I admire that, but God looks at our heart when he determines if we're good or evil. And to God, if we hate someone, we're guilty of murder. And to God, because he sees our heart, to God, if we covet someone else's possessions, we're guilty of stealing from them. And to God, if we're guilty of lusting after a woman, if we lust at a woman, to God, we're guilty, we just committed adultery. And so when we look at God's standards, and God says the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life in Christ Jesus our Lord. How does that make, how can any of us call ourselves good or righteous when God says we're guilty? Can't we see ourselves as good?
Well, we're all sinners.
Yeah, we fall short of the glory of God. In my flesh dwelleth no good thing. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So we're made righteous in Christ, though, because he declares us righteous by his spirit. But in and of ourselves, we're no good. We're like rotten to the core.
And yet the scriptures say that only the righteous will enter the kingdom of heaven. The wicked will not enter. So there seems to be, it's not just a position in God, although the position results in the righteousness, but there's also got to be the good works to back up our faith. So we could say I'm a believer, but if all we do is evil, and all we have is bad fruit in our life, hate and animosity and cursing at people, there's no love, no joy, no peace. It's not a good sign that our faith is authentic, is it? That we've had God Christ in our hearts.
I personally think the idea of the thought police, and that's what we're fighting against. We shouldn't be fighting in favor of the idea of thought police and punishing people for their thoughts. So I think there's a big difference between somebody's thoughts and what they do. So if somebody thinks they're mad at somebody, they want to punch them in the face, right? They're mad at them and they think that, they think it, but they didn't do it.
Right.
Right? I think there's a difference between those things. And killing somebody, thinking about killing somebody versus doing it, there's a difference to that. So we can't be, this thought police stuff isn't okay.
The thought does
That's a
lead
good
to the
point.
deed, but it's when you exercise, when you have a moral compass, though, and you know right from wrong, then you exercise like, or at least if you're caught, well, if I kill this guy, I'd like to, but if I do, then what's going to happen to me? So I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, but that fear of consequences is part of the thing that we see justice, because there's a lot of arguments. There's a lot of arguments that basically 10% of the population is inherently evil, and then 10% of that group is beyond inherently evil. And we see this historically, how these 1% groups wind up rising up and causing enormous problems when they rise up, because it takes about that, that's about how many it takes to take over. We were talking in Germany, for example, it was a very, very small percentage that was really the ones behind all of that stuff that happened. We have to, people have to have a fear of consequences in some cases to keep some of those evil people in check. And if there was no fear of consequences against theft or whatever, people would just steal everything. People wouldn't have any property.
It says in the Bible, it's in the New Testament. Paul writes it. He said the law is not made for the righteous, but it's made for like the, for the godless and the thieves and the murderers and.
1 Timothy.
1 Timothy, yeah. That's exactly what
I
it
just
is.
read that.
It says there is a restraint against evildoers. But those of us, when we have the law of God written on our heart, we're going to do good because
even when nobody's
we
looking.
love God.
So when I talked to that Muslim guy, I brought the law to him because he felt he was good and God's going to let him into heaven. But the reality is we've all sinned. But I shared with him the good news, of course, that Christ paid the penalty for the sins of the whole world, no matter who we are, how bad or how good we are. But the justice system we have on earth can't be the same as God's justice system, because he knows exactly our heart and our mind. But man can't judge our heart and our mind. The justice system, he can only go by what we do, what we threaten, physical evidence. So our justice system has to be based on that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has to be based on
Actual wrongs, actions, not thoughts,
It can't
not
be
feelings.
This idea
not
of Minority
motivations.
Report. The movie Minority Report was you would get arrested for stuff that you were going to do, but you haven't done it yet, right? That was
look for the wedding place. It's over there. Yeah. I figured that.
Oh yeah, the movie, pre-crime, the pre-crime unit.
yeah.
The pre-crime.
So you haven't even had that evil thought yet, but they would judge you based on the fact that you were going to have that evil thought.
Wow, imagine if God did that.
We'd all just go to hell straight up.
He knows what we're going to do,
Yeah.
and yet he allows free choice. Love allows free choice. You're going to let people make their choices, and you're not going to manipulate them to do good. You want them to do good out of their own heart and their own motivations. You can't force people to be good and to do good. You can't change people's behavior.
Well, God probably could. God probably could force people to do that stuff.
Wouldn't that mean people would be robots then? Not
Yeah.
free
People would be robots. We wouldn't have people.
It would not be the kind of creation and relationship with God that he desires, one of trust and love and good relationship. It'd be based on more like we're puppets on a string.
Yeah, he wouldn't have allowed Adam and Eve to eat of the fruit. He would have said, nope, you can't do that.
You know the song?
You want to do it?
Look at that. So it's audible.
On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross. And the suffering and shame of that old cross, where the tears stand past
That was weird.
What did they say?
I have a penis and I have a vagina. That's what they
No,
said.
she said I have a penis and he said I have a vagina.
So what's Bruce's sign say?
Yeah, good one.
So they were screaming at you.
I'm not sure what.
You said I have a penis and I have a vagina.
She said she has a penis. He said he has a vagina.
Oh, okay.
Is that what they? What was
Yeah.
the other way around?
It was the other way around.
Okay, yeah,
Really?
thanks for catching
Yeah.
that. I wouldn't have even
So
caught
I didn't
that.
know if they were for.
I didn't hear it exactly. Oh. Nice day for a bike ride.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah,
So I'm not sure what she meant by that.
These are my signs from like 3 years ago at the Department of Education.
oh, really?
2 or 3 years ago, whenever.
And they're all attacking you just because of
Maybe I
your.
couldn't hardly hold them,
Yeah. So we're pretty much done, I think.
Are we?
Mostly. I haven't been paying attention to Bruce's signs much. I'm surprised this guy doesn't have an association or have a contractor do his grass for him.
I'll trade up my association for his freedom.
Yeah.
Mind if I took a photo?
Oh, that would be. You have to get.
Send this to my bro.
Yeah. There's no expectation of privacy out here. And Bruce wouldn't be out here with a sign if he didn't want people to see it.
He like my bro, man. He's a believer.
I was doing this for 2 years.
My bro just visited me in Florida.
Yeah.
I pretty much heard it all and
Yeah.
seen it all and faced it all, and it hasn't fazed me.
But you need to have more of a space between those two words on the second line. Made them.
Oh, made him?
Let's
Oh, made them.
be a little bit more space would be good.
Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
How come it's not Adam and Steve?
I'm Adam and Eve. They're Bruce and Steve.
Adam and
And when you
Steve.
don't use things how they're engineered, what potentially can happen if you don't use things that they're designed and engineered?
Well,
What happened to those things?
well, a lot of stuff, like if you're, I'm one of the projects I was working on yesterday had to do with explosion-proof areas, hazardous locations, and basically woodworking equipment, and the whole plant just mills out wood, and they're concerned about fire and explosions and all this kind of stuff, and they wanted an engineer to come through and do an analysis of the plant and give a report. So that's what I did, and if you don't use the equipment as intended, you can have disastrous consequences. So
How about if, like a car, what if you put in something besides, like most of the cars up to now are made to run on gasoline?
Yep.
The engineer designed it for that.
yeah,
What if you put in a different fuel because you identified or you felt that you personally preferred a different type of fuel? What would happen to that car?
what would happen if you
Something other than
if you had a
gasoline.
vision, and God told you that I shouldn't use regular gasoline in my car. Instead, I should use some other thing like nitrous oxide. and I should feed some other almost explosive stuff in there instead.
Or something natural like orange juice.
Orange juice,
You know,
yeah.
freshly squeezed, organic. Because
Or corn syrup, right? You know,
I could just put sugar in the gas tank, right?
yeah, sugar in the gas tank. Doesn't work out so good, does it?
Or what if you wanted equity with your fuels? Like treat all fuels with equity, and so don't leave out kerosene.
Sugar, corn syrup. Corn syrup would be how come you're not allowing corn syrup? Or sugar, just straight sugar.
Yeah, who am I to judge?
Yeah. Biodiesel. Biodiesel is pretty much equivalent for the most part. Except they smell like French fries when you burn it.
That's a good thing.
Not too bad.
That's pretty good.
There's some perks to burning
Get me
biodiesel.
hungry. I haven't had breakfast yet.
Neither have I.
But technically, in the middle of the night, I did.
Yeah.
I have strange sleep hours.
You got a good idea there about the equity as far as fuel sources. You should be able to use whatever you want. Just because my vehicle identifies as burning regular gasoline, I should be able to burn E85 in there, right? I should just be able to choose to decide, or use diesel
100% ethanol,
or kerosene.
alcohol.
Kerosene. Heck, I should really be able to use just sugar water.
You have the freedom of choice.
Yeah.
And you do have the freedom of choice. But what's the consequences if you have the wrong choice? Well, what if you put water in your gas tank?
I did.
Or what if you put 50-50, water and gas? What are the consequences of your free choice?
Wreck your engine, probably.
It doesn't wreck your engine.
It just don't run too good.
It doesn't run at all. So I had a gas can in the backyard. Okay, I left it in the backyard. I thought it was full of gas. Turned out the squirrels had chewed through the top of it, and it rained a lot, to the point where the gas can was full. It had gas in it, but it also was full of water, so it was like half gas, half water. I ended up pouring that gas into my car, that one, and I poured about 2 gallons of water into the gas tank. And guess what? It didn't run very good. It didn't run good at all. So then I had to pump my gas tank dry, right? And then I also had to take off my fuel line and keep pumping the fuel pump until it dried the car out completely. And then I had to pour some heat in there and fill it up with real clean gas. And then guess what happened? After I was all done doing all that stuff, and I changed my fuel filter too, because the fuel filter,
Then it ran.
it actually ran, because it was running on what it was designed to run on.
Oh, I see.
It's
starting to come together.
We were traveling with Cammie one day, and she wanted to fill up her car, right?
Wow, nice.
You know, and we stop at a gas station, and I go put gas in her car, and I look at her car, and her car says it takes E85.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, the car takes E85, and I'm like, well, the price of E85 is like $1 a gallon cheaper. So, let's go with E85. And so we did, put E85 in there, filled the thing up with E85. And I'm like, well, that might actually be good for the car once in a while to run this high alcohol.
I didn't know that.
It didn't drive any different. It drove the same.
Because it was designed.
It's designed for a dual fuel, yeah. But sometimes having a lot of alcohol in your fuel is good because it helps to take the water out. So let's just say she's got 2 cups of water in that tank, because hasn't been drained out properly forever, because condensation and whatever. And what happens is the water goes on the bottom of the tank. It just kind of like moves around. And every once in a while, the fuel intake will hit some water. But as long as the water doesn't last too long, the car keeps running anyway. But it doesn't destroy it. It just doesn't burn it.
Right. Yeah, it's nice to have that. On my motorcycle, I don't use E85 and I don't use ethanol because, for one thing, it burns hotter, ethanol fuel, and it leaves more deposits on valves and so forth. So it's not recommended on my motorcycle.
So
So I use non-ethanol 91 octane.
I used to have a 63 Dodge 330 push-button transmission, and it required you to use leaded gasoline. And the reason was really simple, was because the valves weren't hard enough. And if you didn't use leaded gasoline, the valves would go bad. Well, then I ended up getting a valve job where they replaced the valves with the modern type valves.
Oh, nice.
And then I didn't have to use leaded gasoline in the car anymore,
Right.
because the valves were hard enough to survive without the lead.
Yeah, so that's good we got rid of the lead, so we don't have lead in our air.
Yeah.
And
We've largely got rid of asbestos. It turns out asbestos wasn't as good as the government told us it was. You know, the government was running around telling everybody asbestos was the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
We should be using asbestos for everything. Heck, we should be making respiration masks out of asbestos.
that was the narrative.
Asbestos is a magic fiber. You know, you just mine it out of the ground and it lasts forever.
And what are the motivations and incentives of government to mandate things? Why do they have to mandate them if it's common sense and if it's scientifically proven?
If it's logical. You hear he says, "Let's go, Brandon."
Eddie?
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I think he knew that we're probably who we are
yeah,
because we're here every Saturday, right?
yep, yep.
They get to know us.
Yeah, he came by. Yeah,
People, they're cheering and they don't even see my signs. They're driving from the.
there's a nice one.
These are a little rescue.
A little rescue.
So after the windshield guy cleaned all the rust out of my frame and primed it a couple times, another layer of the urethane, I go to pick up my car and the driver's side mirror is out of adjustment. I can't see the cars behind me. I go to adjust it, it doesn't adjust.
He broke it.
It's broke. And so I go, as far as I know, when I brought my car in, the driver's side mirror worked fine. Then you replace the windshield, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work. No,
Wow.
it's misdirected. And so, but I really liked the guy, and he wouldn't cheat me. And so,
You might just not have noticed it
that's a possibility.
because you've never adjusted it because it's just you. He probably bumped it. You also might have blown a fuse in it if it's one of those electronic ones.
It's not electronics manual. We're talking a 2001 Toyota Echo here, manual,
Oh.
manual. Everything's manual, but there was kind of, so he took it all apart for me because he was concerned he might have done it.
Yeah.
And he found like two pieces that should be joined together.
Yeah,
Were
broken.
now separate.
Oh,
And so I'm not sure at what point that happened.
yeah.
Like, did it just, because as far as I know, I drove down there, I can see, I wouldn't want to drive without mirrors I can't see.
Yeah.
And so I'm pretty sure they were all positioned right, worked right. And then he gives the car back to me and the mirrors now aren't right. And so I just, I just in a friendly way brought it up. And I don't think either of us want to cheat the other person. And so he took it apart and found it was the two adjoining parts are now separated. And
Yeah.
so he's going to look for another mirror. I thought I might look for a used mirror on carparts.com, I think it is.
Yeah.
Is it car-parts.com?
You can get older cars. You can get all the stuff. My kids used to go down to the you pull it type parts places,
Oh yeah.
and they would pull everything. My kids would swap out engines and swap out transmissions and do all their ball joints, and you name it, they do it. So, because that was I bought welders and all the and grinders and
Having an adult and a child on one of those scooters with their little wheels.
yeah.
Concerned for their life.
Maybe we should get the government to do something about it. And they're not wearing a helmet either. Oh.
I am though literally concerned about their lives. With
Yeah, but
cars
we don't want the
driving
government
by
to
next month.
decide stuff. We would like
Let
to
them
see
Let them fall once or twice, then maybe they'll learn.
we'd like to see them
If I was in
be
government
safe and
there's
everything,
a
but
high number of fatalities from those, I would issue a warning. I would say an advisory. I would
so if
say-
you were in charge, would you do stuff like that? Mandate?
I wouldn't mandate, but I would issue advisories
Well,
based
that's
on real science,
yeah.
based on real evidence and statistics and studies and research.
How
over
about
a wide group of people.
how about laws like not driving when you're drunk?
Yeah, that is something I would mandate, not driving while drunk, because that puts everybody else at risk. It's not just themselves at that point. Now you are a risk to people who are driving safely or law-abiding.
You're not just a risk to yourself; you're a risk to everybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you are, and a car weighs a couple tons, and there are bicycle riders, there are pedestrians, there are people on scooters with little wheels.
Yeah.
Where just a little bit of a swerve can take people out. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't take much. You gotta be very alert. You can't be texting and driving to be alert.
So would you be one of those people that would ban using cell phones and texting and stuff in the car? Especially given you're a person that doesn't do that, 'cause you don't have one of those devices.
My first thought, without doing an in-depth thought research on it, my first thought is, I guess I wouldn't want to make it illegal, but I wonder about making cars, possibly with the ability to do hands-free telecommunications.
Clearly,
you don't have
that's
to use your hands to do the
yeah.
texting.
Clearly,
But texting is pretty bad though. A person hit my car. A person hit my van. They were texting.
Yeah.
They ran into me. They smashed into my car,
Yeah.
my van at that time, because they were texting.
Yeah. Not paying attention. But I see people reading newspapers driving down the road, right? I'm sure you have too, right? So what's the difference between reading a newspaper and texting?
Well, I don't think there'd be much difference.
No.
Same.
So to me, inherently dangerous behavior, like reading a newspaper while you're driving down the highway, is it's sketchy behavior.
You can't make a law to prevent people from doing every dumb thing under the sun.
That's right.
But
Well, talking to somebody else in the car. Some people are having a fight, having an argument with somebody else in the car.
there you go. How well are you going to drive?
How well are you going to drive? You're getting all worked up because you're having a verbal argument with somebody else.
And what
Or
about
you're-
if I see a beautiful
Yeah.
tree in the fall?
I thought you were going to say a beautiful girl
No.
driving by there's a
No, beautiful maple tree.
Look out!
A beautiful orange-red glowing maple tree and sugar maple tree in the sunset.
Yeah.
I'm driving. It's possible I could look at that.
Yep, you got
and be
distracted.
A distracting billboard,
So you
right?
could be distracted by a million things.
You can't write laws to
You can't
address.
write laws for all those million possibilities.
Yeah, because you could also argue that people put up There was, for example, a billboard where they had a car up on. I think it might still exist. A car up on a post, basically up elevated up by the highway, and in the car they had a girl. It was a mannequin in a bikini. So people would crank their heads a lot to look at the girl in the bikini in the car, along the side of the road up on the post, and there were people arguing that that was causing car accidents. You know.
If they're looking up, I guess it could. Yeah. So if we're dumb enough to look
So I
up,
guess to me stuff like that winds up being a civil deal where you might have
yeah, 'cause
potentially
you can be distracted by anything.
anything, yeah.
And
And
not
really-
everything is your fault. You can have the sun glaring in your windshield.
Yep.
You know, and you can't put your, visor low enough to block it or whatever.
Your
Hey, I
sunglasses.
almost ran through. I was with a guy that almost ran through a stop sign once because he couldn't see it because we're going right. I said stop just because it was in my neighborhood. I knew it was there.
And in a heavy
see it.
snowstorm blizzard, it could be very hard to see. It can be hard to see the road.
What about these people who are in blizzards, snowstorms or whatever? They can't see, so what they do is they stop under a highway, under
Under a bridge?
under a bridge. Yeah. And so now they're all good because they're in the road under the bridge, but nobody can see them, right? And they're blocking the road, and the car comes along at 60 miles an hour and plows into them.
See, look at this bike. We got a guy at Roseville Central Pike Park that rides us around really fast.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that a scooter of some kind or what?
But I couldn't ride my motorcycle on that path.
No.
But you can ride a scooter that can go 30 miles an hour on walking paths. At what point of course you can ride bicycles too. At what point are they too fast and motorized for bicycle and walking paths, these electric vehicles? That'd be another discussion, I guess.
There's a whole bunch of people coming.
But you can make an electric motorcycle to go as fast as my bike, my gasoline.
Well, my kid used to do
I
it.
wouldn't be allowed on the park trails, but that possibly would be.
My kid liked to buy those motorcycles that were limited to like 30 or 40 miles an hour and then modify them so that they were good to like 60.
Oh,
My kid's pretty smart. And,
Yeah.
then of course these motorcycles that would go that fast were super popular, so then you could sell them. My kid, I was kind of foolish enough to explain to him how to do it, like changing the gear ratios and motor sizes and stuff. And
oh.
they're all one speed, one set of gears, and you change some of that stuff. And